What's up, guys? It's Joe Troyer. How's everybody doing today? Hello, hello, hello. Lots of familiar names and faces here on the line. If you're here, say you're here. Cool. What's up, Oliver? What's up, Jason? What's up, Giuseppe? Jacqueline, Oliver, Steve, Tim. What's up? Good to see you guys. D, Dixon, Barry Gordon. Hello. Excited for today's webinar. KB, what's up? All right. So I'm coming to you guys from South Florida. Cool. So guys, we are all on this call for a reason, and I hope you guys like the headline of this. This is going to be a crazy call. So I want to take a second and talk to you guys about a couple of things before we get started here and before I bring on our special guest today. So we're going to be talking about this guy Tom's 5-step virtual assistant hiring funnel. And what's cool is I've talked to you guys about hiring before, and some of this stuff will be a little bit of a reminder for you guys, if you will. But there's going to be a couple key things in here, a couple really key things that are going to change your outlook on outsourcing and are really going to have a dramatic effect on your bottom line. The cool thing that I love about Tom and what Tom does when he outsources is that essentially he ensures that from day one of hiring a virtual assistant that he's getting a 400% return on investment. How many of you guys, if you knew that you could get a 400% return on investment from day one of hiring a VA, you'd agree with me that you'd probably have a VA or two right now? Give me a 3 in the chat. All day long, twice on Sunday, right? So I think that a lot of us kind of go about hiring in an incorrect manner. And so I'm super excited to have Tom on today, give you guys a little tease about what we're going to be covering. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to grab a sip of water here, and we got a bunch of people joining, and then we'll get this thing kicked off. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our call today on how to build your virtual empire. I am super fired up for today's call. Real quick, I'd love to get some feedback from you guys. If you guys have ever been on a training with me where we talk about outsourcing and hiring, give me a 2 in the chat. Give me a 2 in the chat real quick. Okay, couple 2s. Okay, so guys, I've spent on Upwork, which used to be Elance and Odesk. They merged and now they're Upwork. We've spent over $100,000 on Upwork just in the hiring process, right? Because after somebody works for us for quite a while, we take them off the platform. So essentially we spent $100,000 and we haven't even learned and haven't had the big key takeaways that you guys are going to learn here today. When it comes to outsourcing, I don't do a whole lot of training or bring people on to the Digital Triggers community to have them talk about outsourcing because I think that we're pretty damn good at it. We're pretty good at building a team. But when I ran into Tom, I knew that I had to have him come on and share with our community what he does and his unique system because it's very different from what I know that you guys have been taught. Okay, and even with us spending roughly $100,000 ourselves just on our hiring funnel, not after somebody actually becomes an employee with us, right? But just $100,000 basically on that funnel and test projects and everything else. And I learned some things from Tom. I knew I had to have him come on and join you guys. So I'm really excited because I think that this is the crux for most consultants and most SEOs, aka everybody that's on this webinar right now. Okay, if I would have had this training right here, right now, or at the beginning of my career, I know that this would have really shortened my learning curve by years. In the emails leading up to this webinar, I talked about how really all of us have 7 jobs or 7 different places that we have to focus on in our business. 7 different key parts of the business. Okay, and it can be very difficult as a one-man band, right, as a solo entrepreneur, to cover all of those 7 areas. So guys, I'm super, super excited to have Tom Hunt with us today. So Tom is a guy that I'm sure many of you guys have never heard of. Give me a 1 if you've ever heard of Tom. If you've ever heard Tom Hunt. Okay, we got a couple. Cool, that's fantastic. So we got 2 people that gave me a 1 in the chat. Okay, so this isn't somebody that's in the internet marketing space, so to speak, and that you guys have ever probably been on a webinar before with. So I had Tom come on to our mastermind training and had him share, and I interviewed him on his process and hiring for our mastermind community, right? And everybody just raved and was floored by the training that we did for the community, right? For the mastermind members only. Okay. And everybody raved and wanted to make sure that we brought Tom back. Okay. So guys, this is me bringing Tom back, and I invited everybody on our entire Digital Triggers list to come check out this webinar and to get this training here today. So Tom has done really, really well getting into big media as well. Okay, Tom has been featured on places like Forbes. Okay, he's been on the Dragon's Den, which is really where Shark Tank came from, right? The US kind of ripped off Shark Tank from that show, right? The Dragon's Den. He's been featured on HubSpot, Duct Tape Marketing, Business.com, and most recently, just over last weekend, was featured on GoDaddy.com. Okay, I seeked him out. So guys, if you guys would give Tom a nice, friendly hello and welcome in the chat. And Tom, man, thanks so much for making the time to be with us today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Joe. Ever since we met and have been discussing, I've really enjoyed that. I'm glad that you've learned from me, and I've definitely learned some things from you over the past couple of months. And I'm really excited about sharing some of those learnings that I've had in the past 3 years. 3 to 5 years in outsourcing with everybody on the call today.
Awesome. Fantastic, man. So guys, if you would, real quick before Tom gets started, we got a lot to share with you guys today. Do me a favor, turn off all the distractions, turn off your cell phone or put it on vibrate, close your door, okay, get out a piece of paper and a pen, and let's roll up our sleeves and make some changes in our business today. So if you would, give me a 3 if you guys are ready in the chat, and without further ado, we'll get Tom to kick this session off. Awesome, awesome. We are ready to go, brother.
Okay, so the next 45 minutes to an hour is entitled How to Build Your Virtual Empire, and I'm going to be sharing 3 mind-blowing lessons that I've actually experienced from hiring 83 different virtual assistants. To be more specific, these are the 3 areas that we will be covering. Number 1, the single most important realization that every successful entrepreneur makes before they grow their business. How I generate 20 leads an hour, every hour, for just $3 per hour, and why I don't have enough work/money for a VA is never an excuse. And number 2 here is the key to getting that 400% ROI on the salary for your virtual assistant. So it basically eradicates that excuse that you might have saying that you don't have enough money to expand or you don't have enough work to expand. So we're going to jump into that on number 2. And then finally, I'm not just going to sort of leave you there, show you how you can get the ROI and then run away. I'm actually going to go through the 5-step sort of recruitment process that enables you to actually never have to hire a virtual assistant again. And that may sound strange, but all will be revealed. So my promise to you, the one thing that you guys need to keep me accountable for in the chat, please, is after the next 45 minutes, you'll have a step-by-step guide to hiring your first managing virtual assistant. There's a slight difference here between a virtual assistant and a managing virtual assistant, and we're going to get into that. Because when you have been through these 45 minutes, it will basically mean that you'll never actually have to hire another virtual assistant because your manager, the first virtual assistant that you will hire, will do it for you. And you may be asking why I'm kind of authorized to be able to explain this process for you and to enable you to get results, and that is what we'll be talking about in about 4 minutes. Before that, we're going to talk about the problem. There are 2 parts to this problem. There's a reason why we're on this call now, is because 90% of small businesses in the US fail after 5 years, as per Bloomberg. That's part one of the problem. Part two of the problem actually comes from a good friend of mine, Albert Einstein. And Einstein once said that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking or same level of thinking we used when we created them. So if we understand these two concepts here, so many small businesses fail, and also in order to solve a problem, we have to move on to a different level of thinking. If we combine these two things together, we can actually get to the solution, which really acts as the core, sort of the core school of thought behind everything we're going to be going through today. And it all will be clear in a second. Do not worry if it's not currently. So the solution, it was actually presented to me as I was reading this book, The E-Myth Revisited. And can I get a 3 in the chat if anybody has read or heard of this book before? So it's The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Subtitle, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It.
Yeah, so quite a few 3s, Tom.
Awesome. Okay. So if I was to summarize this book in one image, it is that image there on the right of the screen. And Michael Gerber presents this model of the stages of evolution of the entrepreneur, from technician to manager to entrepreneur. And he basically says that an entrepreneur is somebody who works above their business. So he doesn't work within the business, he works on the business. So we quickly jump back, and we understand that small businesses fail, or many small businesses fail after 5 years, and that in order to solve problems, we need to rise up to a different level. We need to arrive above the problem. Then this starts to explain the solution, because what Michael Gerber says is that in order for your small business or for your business to thrive, you as the entrepreneur must be working on the system, in other words, above the system. So you must position yourself above the system so you can work on it and not in the business. And the rest of this webinar is really going to clarify exactly why and how, most importantly, how you can do that so you do not fall to the same fate as the other 90% of small businesses after 5 years. That is the goal. That is the goal of this webinar.
So real quick, Tom, I want to get some feedback from the chat. How many of you guys would say that you spend most of your time working on your business instead of in your business? If you spend most of your time working on your business, give me a 4. And if you spend most of your time working in the business and you realize that's probably the biggest problem, give me a 5. Lots and lots and lots of 5s. Cool. All right, couple 4s too. That's good. So we're going to teach you guys a couple tweaks today as well to the system, so to speak.
I mean, that's great feedback. It really means that there is a lot to this. It basically means that this content is going to have a massive impact, and I think could actually really change the fortunes. Like everybody here, I know will succeed anyway because you're part of this sort of growth and self-improvement mindset. But I think what we're going to go through today is really going to help that as well. So, Joe, shall I continue?
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay. So before we jump into that content that's going to really make that how and why clear to you, I should probably introduce a little bit about myself, and
that'd probably be a good idea.
So that the information you receive, you understand sort of the experience or where it's come from. So I graduated university and I went to work for large corporations, 2 of them, in fact, the first of which was Ernst & Young, who are one of the big 4 accounting companies, and then Accenture, which is one of the largest technology outsourcing companies in the world. Now, if we try to think about whether I was working within or above those businesses, I think it's safe to say that I was very much working within those systems. And I was working mainly in outsourcing. So I was taking work from large corporations in the UK and in the US and taking them to India, where Accenture has a very large presence. So just to reiterate, though, I was definitely an employee here. I was definitely a technician and spent a little bit of time as a manager within these business systems. However, I never really enjoyed being the employee. I'd never really enjoyed the work that I was doing, and therefore I decided to create my own business system. It's actually called Start Out Consulting. Start Out Consulting connected startups in London with a team of Filipino virtual assistants that I had built in the Philippines. And then I was kind of the middleman. I'd work with the startups on their processes and outsourcing and what they could outsource, because that's what I've been doing in the corporate world. But then I also provided the work from my team in the Philippines. Now, this was amazing because it enabled me to replace my salary and leave Accenture. But the problem was I was still working within the system. I was no longer an employee. I was self-employed, but I spent the majority of my time working with the clients on their systems and processes and not on my own.
So Tom, just to clarify, so you were no longer an employee, but you still had a job.
Exactly, and that's a very good point, Joe, because most people that go away, I had my own limited company, I had my own corporation with Startup Consulting, but because I was spending all of my time within the system, I was never rising above and looking down, because I was doing the actual technician work, I was still was not an entrepreneur. And fortunately, I realized this naturally, because when we scaled to 6 different clients with Startup Consulting, I realized that if this was going to grow anymore, I needed to stop doing that technician work, and I needed to actually rise above and become an entrepreneur. So we built a platform called Virtual Valley, which connects entrepreneurs and small business owners with people in the Philippines, virtual assistants, experienced virtual assistants in the Philippines to do work for them. Now, the margin, so with Startup Consulting, we were charging almost double the salary of the Filipino virtual assistant, and that included some of my time as well. So if we weren't going to include my time, obviously the margin dropped, but it also meant I was not included in the day-to-day running of the business. I sat above the virtual valley system. I was able to tweak things. I was able to jump down and do the things that I enjoyed and to do the things that were very important. And so if we look back at the journey, you can see I've come from employee to self-employed to now, the majority of my time is spent as the entrepreneur. So looking down at the system and tweaking small things, maybe hiring key players, maybe working on a piece of marketing if I wanted to do that. And from anecdotal evidence, if we weren't to look at any of the numbers or my income, I can tell you that my quality of life now is significantly better. I get to do the tasks that I want to do, not the tasks that we sort of have to do to keep the business running. But that isn't even the most interesting part, because when you do become the entrepreneur and you get the opportunity to spend time doing the things that you want to do, amazing stuff can happen. And so you can see on this slide the thing, what I really, really like about being or working in business at the moment is creating awesome content and networking with awesome people. So what I'm going to show on the slide here is the awesome piece of content that I got to create, and also the awesome people that I got to connect with. So you can see here John Lee Dumas, who is the creator of Entrepreneur on Fire. I think the most popular entrepreneurial podcast, tweeted us when we released our podcast, which actually got to #1 in No Weather. You can see the podcast there in the center. I wrote on Richard Branson's blog, Virgin. I have big bloggers saying, Tom, you're everywhere, because I'm spending all of my time creating content, because that's the thing that I enjoy, while the business system is being managed by my virtual assistant manager, and we'll get onto more of that in a second. Again, being featured in iTunes, being featured on other podcasts. That tweet is actually by a company called Typeform that I really like. They were distributing our content for us. Writing a blog on the HubSpot blog, you can see there. So what this slide basically is trying to say is that when you do become the entrepreneur, you can pick and choose the task that you want to do. And when that happens, when you're passionate about the actual work that you're doing, you will find that you actually start doing your best work. And the work that I was doing here, the work that I'm still doing with Virtual Valley, is my best work because it's the stuff that I really love doing. And you may be like, okay, Tom, so you're running this business and you're creating all this content and networking with all these people. Are you just working like all the time? Is that all you do? Is that like, how's your quality of life? And this next slide sort of shares the things that I have been able to do since I did really become an entrepreneur. And I'll just run through these quickly. I'll pick out a few highlights. But the first one there is actually, this is the Shark Tank of the UK that I appeared on actually with my first business. I probably wouldn't urge you to watch that video. It's actually a male leggings company, and we're going to pitch the leggings. So we're not gonna keep on that. I completed a TEDx talk talking about failing, well, how people should stop thinking and start failing more. I've been traveling around the world, that's Norway, Hong Kong, Croatia, on the beach in Venezuela, speaking at a marketing event that we run here in London. Spent a lot of time in airports, on the beach, and also overlooking Caracas. So again, what I'm trying to say here is that quality of life, enjoyment, and quality of output really, really improves when you are able to sort of step out of your system and just do the task, work on the business when you need to, but also do the work that you like doing. So without further ado, I would like to jump into the first part of this webinar. But before we do that, actually, if the point about how much more freedom you will get to do the tasks that you want to do, and also other things in your life that you would like to do, if that's clear, give me a 3, please, in the chat, if it's clear what your life, or how your life could improve if you sort of start working on the system and not in the system.
And guys, give us a 3 if you'll admit that you are you no longer have a job, right? Or you no longer, employed, but today you have a job, right? Because you're not truly an entrepreneur, you're a solopreneur, and you're working in your business instead of on your business. I think, guys, if you can have one key takeaway so far, that would be it, right? If you can have that takeaway that you need to start shifting, right? And that you need to spend some time investing in making that shift. That's one huge key takeaway that I need you guys to make sure that you're having. Cool. Lots and lots of 3s. Cool, Tom.
Awesome. And what's great about about the point that we're at now, is that step 1, we're just going to talk a little bit more about being an entrepreneur, and then step 2 and 3 in this webinar are all about how you do this. So let's jump back in. And the person who put 2.9 in the chat, that's really funny. So they don't quite understand, but they're nearly there. Right, let's jump in. So what is the single most important realization that every entrepreneur makes, every successful, should I say, entrepreneur makes before they grow their business? We've kind of touched upon this already. And it is that you need to actually become an entrepreneur, you have to understand that all of the time that you're investing, all of your business time that you're investing, will fit into 3 different categories. And this comes from the E-Myth Revisited. You can be the technician, you can be the manager, or you can be the entrepreneur. So if we take the example, so I know that most people on this call are SEOs. So the technician in the SEO business is building links, is setting up campaigns, is communicating with clients on a day-to-day basis about probably like creating reports, keyword research. The manager would be managing the people that are doing this. But the entrepreneur would be out building relationships with partners / investors, or would be hiring key managers for the business. So hopefully that's clear that the entrepreneur is not the person doing the day-to-day work for the client. The entrepreneur sits above the system and tweaks, slightly changes the system to ensure its productivity and ensure its output. But then, of course, can also jump in and do the thing. And let's say you, as the owner of your agency, really, really enjoy doing keyword research. And you're also very good at doing keyword research. Being an entrepreneur does not mean that you cannot do that. It means you have the freedom not to do that. And you can jump in and do that whenever your manager or whenever your technician doesn't want to do it or doesn't have time to do it. So this is the realization that every minute you spend in the business is fitting into one of these 3 categories. And that in order to grow the business and to build a more efficient system, you have to start shifting your time up the ladder. You have to become aware of when you're being dragged into the technician work, aware of when you're being dragged into being a manager, and you have to immediately say to yourself, should I be doing this piece of work, or can I get somebody else to do this piece of work? And as you do that, and what we're going to jump onto in paths 2 and 3 is really going to empower you to do that. And because as you understand, more and more of your time is going to be spent as the entrepreneur, and you'll see that your business system is getting more and more efficient, and you start helping more and more people. And of course, when you help more and more people, you make more and more cash. So that is the first realization, and I really need everybody here to start becoming aware of where you're spending your time. Because if you remain the technician, your business is not going to grow. Which, by the way, is absolutely fine. If you are happy being self-employed, if you are happy working within the system and keeping your business small and being an active part of that system, that is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I suspect that the majority of people on this call do not actually want that, because you're part of this sort of growth and self-improvement industry where you have a drive to actually want to help more people and to build a system that does help more people. So that is what I suspect. But there's nothing wrong with remaining the technician. So that is the first realization. And now we're going to jump over. So we've really explained sort of the problem and the solution and why it's important to address that solution. Now steps 2 and 3, this is where like the rubber hits the road. This is where we really start to understand how you move from technician up to entrepreneur, and therefore how you actually grow your business. But before we do that, I'm just going to reiterate the point about time and how you have to be aware of where your time is being spent. And one trick that you can use that I actually started doing when I started learning about this concept is just tracking on Notepad or in a Google Doc your day, and then writing next to that. You can do it in a spreadsheet, that works well as well. Right next to it, just 3 letters, so T, M, or E. It actually works best in a spreadsheet because then you can then very simply, at the end of the day or at the end of the week, sum those different columns based on whether they're technician, management, or entrepreneur time, and you get a reliable percentage that tells you where you're spending your time, and then you can benchmark that and try and improve that over time. So that is step 1. And now we're going to move on to actually how you start doing that, or what are the key strategies and tactics to enable you to shift your time to entrepreneur. And the first of which, I'm actually going to let you into a little secret here, and the secret is a method that I've used for the past 2.5 years to get the ROI on the salary of all of the virtual assistants that I had hired before or within 20% of their time that they're investing in. We're going to go into more details here.
I need a little bit of interaction from the crowd before you drop this, Tom. Right. Okay. So those of you guys that when you landed on the registration page and you saw the headline, right, for the 5-step virtual assistant hiring funnel that guarantees that Tom finds a perfect candidate, but also gets a 400% return on investment from day one. If that's what truly piqued your interest to be on today's call, okay, and you guys are ready to hear that, I need each and every one of you guys to give me a 9 because this is golden. Okay, and so many of you guys, when you go to hire somebody and you put them on stupid tasks that aren't going to bring you a return on investment. And then after 30, 60, 90, or 120 days, however long, you're like, why'd I hire a virtual assistant? They're not making me any more money. And then you fire them and you're right back to where you started. Does that sound familiar? So guys, this is the key. This is one little key. This is one little twist that you guys need to ensure that you're making. Cool. Sorry, Tom. Go ahead, brother.
No problem. Okay, so in order for you to step above the business system, you need to be confident that somebody is running your business system effectively. And what we're going to do here, really by the end of this webinar, you're going to have the person in place who gives you the confidence to allow you that freedom. But before we do that, we need to kind of understand why it is so easy now to not be self-employed, and why it's so easily, especially with online businesses, for you to become the entrepreneur and live that amazing life while still growing this awesome business system. And so what the internet, so the image in the top left is the sort of the image that I found on the internet that most encapsulates the internet. The internet has allowed us to work effectively with people all around the world. So people in India, people in Poland, which is a great place for outsourcing if you're in the UK, but most importantly, people in the Philippines. And what we're going to sort of talk about now is exactly why I chose to work to create my first startup, the startup consulting, if you remember from that first slide, with people from the Philippines, because I spent the majority of my time in the corporate world working with people in India. And there are two factors that have really driven me to focus all of my outsourcing efforts in the Philippines, and they are the fact that at one point in history, I'm not great at history, that the Philippines was colonized by the US, and therefore American English is taught to people in the Philippines from a very young age. So you have next to no language difficulties that I have experienced when working with people in Poland and working with people in India. That's the first factor. The second is that there's something culturally about people in the Philippines in that they are one of their biggest driving factors that they look for, the work in the Philippines look for, is security. And therefore, when the biggest driving factor of one of your employees is security, if you're able to hold up your side of the bargain and pay regularly and be an awesome person to work for, they have immense loyalty. In fact, I cannot think of a time, and I've hired many, many virtual assistants, as we know, over the past few years, where a virtual assistant has left me, as opposed to the people in India that I work with, developers in India, developers in Poland, who have just stopped doing work. So those are the two reasons why I've chosen the Philippines, and the internet has really enabled us to do this. There's really no excuse now not to have a distributed team, and in my opinion, there's really no excuse to work with to have the manager for your online business based in the Philippines. So before we sort of move on to the lead generation task that we're going to go through in a second, I just want to reiterate the reason why I said that there really is no excuse to run an online business without a manager based in the Philippines. I'm sure you guys are aware of the wage or the wages that you would need to pay to people based in the Western world. For example, in the UK, £10 per hour, in the US, £18 per hour, and of course these hourly rates are not comprehensive. They also include employment tax, legal fees, and of course office space. 17 Canadian dollars per hour, or 18 Australian dollars per hour. So it's very important for us to understand that if you do have a manager or employees in a physical office, there is a significant amount of money that is not being invested elsewhere into your business. So there's an opportunity cost associated with that money that isn't being spent on growth within your business, that is potentially hindering or risking or adding an additional risk to your chances of business success. So now we understand the investment required for onshore resources. Let's talk about how much you can actually pay, or how much you need to invest in Filipino resources or offshore resources. So what we're going to be going through in part 3 of this webinar is how to actually hire your VA manager. And I've worked with just two VA managers over the past 3 years that I've started my own businesses that have had managers in the Philippines. And both of those have been university educated. They've been my full-time manager VA for less than $600 per month, full-time. So that is $3.75 per hour, as opposed to the $18 per hour I would be paying in the US. Furthermore, that $3.75 per hour is comprehensive. There are no other additional charges, though there's one special thing that people in the Philippines have that we're going to cover later on in this webinar. But that is not sort of the lowest you would pay. You can actually find basic data entry or lead generation VAs for just $3 per hour. So obviously you can see that if you have somebody working for 100 hours in a month, there's significant cost savings. So we can do the math very quickly here. 3 times 100 would be $300 per month. 18 times 100 would be $1,800 per month. So you can see there is $1,500 that you would be saving just taking that work that does not need to be done onshore and giving it to someone in the Philippines. But then, of course, I've been taught or working very effectively with virtual assistants in my own business for 3 years and in the corporate world for many years. And when I've been speaking with other online business owners, this excuse always seems to find its way. It always seems to surface somehow. And I believe it actually is a valid concern. Is downtime, if you're not giving your VA enough work to do, then there's no point in spending the money that you have to give that security. And if you are strapped for cash, as in you, at the end of the month, your profit is lower than, let's say, the $600 per month, so you wouldn't be able to hire anybody new, then yeah, obviously this can be a valid excuse. But what I'm going to show you now, and what I've been doing effectively ever since I started hiring not just manager VAs, but normal VAs as well, is the task that I'm sure every VA is doing. It's the first task I train people to do, and there's more on that later, is this very specific lead generation task. So let's say you're running a cold email campaign, and I know Joe has some very effective cold email campaigns that I've actually seen myself. Let's say you're running a cold email campaign, and it closes just 1 in 1,000 clients that you reach out to, and those clients have a lifetime value of $1,000 for your company. If you can ensure that your lead generation VA creates 50 leads per hour, and as we've just been through, we can be paying them $3 per hour. If you do the maths here, you're effectively buying a 1K customer for just $60. And to break that down a little bit, you would need your VA to work 20 hours when scraping 50 leads per hour. That's going to cost you $60, but they'll also give you the email list for $1,000, and we know your cold email campaign is closing 1 out of 1,000 clients. So yes, we can switch the numbers around here. We can change them slightly. Maybe your cold email campaign closes 1 in 500 or 1 in 2,000, but you can still see that you're pretty much just buying customers at a fraction of their lifetime value for your company.
Yep. So guys, real quick, I think that this is a very, very conservative estimate. Who here feels like they cannot close 1 in 1,000 prospects? Who here, again, feels like they can't close 1 in 1,000? And I didn't get anybody telling me that they can't. Silence, right? Whose average customer value, right, or lifetime value of a customer is over $1,000? Whose average customer value or lifetime value of a customer is over $1,000? Everybody on the call. So is there any way that this ROI breakdown doesn't work? If so, I want to hear it in the chat. Is there any way that this slide right here doesn't work? Is there any way that this slide here doesn't work? And I hear crickets in the chat. Okay, give me a 9 if you are not doing this right now. Give me a 9 if you are not doing this right now. Okay, guys, the beauty of this is Tom's kind of budgeted here on the screen just 20 hours. That doesn't mean that the VA can't work on other stuff for you in that 20 hours, that they can't help automate your email and your follow-up with your prospects, and they can't take a bunch of other tasks and responsibilities off your plate like Tom's manager does for him. Sorry for the rant, Tom, but I want to make sure that this really sunk in.
No, it's fine. As you mentioned, the real beauty here is that I was only having my VAs do this for 2 of the 8 hours per day that they were working, but as we can see, the revenue they were bringing in for these clients covered their salary and more with just those 2 hours, which basically meant that the other 6 hours, where they were taking all the other tasks off my hands that I don't enjoy doing, was for free. And that is real, like the quality of life then when you know the salary of your staff or your VA is covered by just 25% of their time, and the rest of that extra time is full of bonus where they can just make your life better. That is really what enabled me to create all that awesome content, develop that amazing network, and also lead that quite exciting life for the past few years. However,
so, real quick, I want to go back one slide. I want to talk about one thing before we move on. Real quick, if you're in our Digital Trigger Sales Mastermind, give me a 3 in the chat. Okay. So those of you guys that are not, I want to share with you guys one thing. All the success stories that you guys have seen from that program this year, right, since we've been running it, all come from cold email. The slide that you're looking at here is essentially what they do all day, every day. It's the method that I teach. Cold email, right? Why? Because it's super low cost and it works like gangbusters. Okay? All those crazy results come from cold email. Okay? So when you have somebody come in and you hire a VA, make sure that at least 25% of their time, if not 80% of their time or 90% of their time, are directly working on money generating activities. If you guys do that, how can you fail? How can that hire fail? How can your business fail? Cool. All right, Tom.
thank you. Cool.
I think that's like rant number 7. I think we should start keeping count.
I quite enjoy these rants, so let's have a couple more. Okay, so now we've been through, we really understand why it's so important to raise above the business and become the entrepreneur. We've understood exactly what you need to get your virtual assistant to do and able to give you the confidence to rise above and the confidence that their salary is covered. And the other 6 hours of their time is enabling you to rise above. You didn't think I was just going to leave you there, right? We actually need to understand how we find that virtual assistant manager / superstar to handle all of this for you so you don't have to worry. So what we're going to do now is run through a 5-step recruitment process that we actually had to develop. So I didn't mention the only difference or the core difference between Virtual Valley and the other large freelancer marketplaces like Upwork and Freelancer and People Per Hour is that we have a curated database of just Filipino virtual assistants. And this meant we actually had to go out and hire 83 of the best virtual assistants we could find in the Philippines and bring them to the supply side of the marketplace. Now, I knew, or me and my manager knew, that the success of that marketplace would live or die based on the quality of the virtual assistants. So I spent a lot of time learning and researching about recruitment in order to design a recruitment process that would bring only the best. And as I was doing this, I kind of realized that a lot of the recruitment processes for virtual assistants that I had found were actually sort of giving people the wrong types of virtual assistants. But it kind of isn't your fault. I saw in the chat that a couple of people had hired virtual assistants, or virtual staff, but it hadn't turned out very well. It seemed like they weren't the right person for the role. And I believe, or from my research and experimentation, I believe that there's something called the commitment consistency bias that's actually leading you to hire the wrong virtual assistants. And in order to combat this, I've created this law. And this law says that the more time invested in hiring a poor VA, the more likely you are to make a mishire, wasting hours of your time and hundreds of dollars. Now, to get this...
Tom, can you go back there real quick?
Yep.
Back one slide. So, guys, give me a 4 if you guys have tried to hire a virtual assistant before. Give me a 4. Whether you've done it from Upwork or Odesk or Elance in the past, right? Or you've used Craigslist, or you've used onlinejobs.ph, or you've used Craigslist in maybe like Manila or a different area. If you guys have outsourced and went through that process before, just give me a 4 in the chat. Okay? Okay, so quite a few 4s. Okay, so guys, what happens when you guys get your job posting up, right? You guys go to outsource because you're freaking overwhelmed, right? You are overwhelmed. You are getting just hammered in your business, and you finally come to the realization that we've been talking about on this webinar, and you realize, crap, I got to find some help, right? So you decide, I'm going to go outsource or put a job listing on this site. And then what happens? You get inundated with a boatload of applicants, right? You get 100 applications, somebody just said. So does that really cure your problem? Does that really cure your problem? No, now you need to spend 3 or 4 more hours or 5 hours or even 10 hours combing through all of those applications, right? So this is where Tom is saying that this law is so important, right? The more time invested in hiring a poor VA, the more likely you are to make a mishire, wasting hours of your time and hundreds of dollars. Does that make sense? Give me a yes in the chat if that makes sense. Okay, if you guys have given me a 4 in the chat, you guys have went through the hiring process, you guys understand this. Okay, if you've ever dealt with growth, you understand this. You've literally been in these shoes. You've had to deal with this. It's like, okay, you got to slow down basically to go through all these applications to make sure you hire the right person. Okay, so what Tom's going to share with you guys is going to help you guys really, really decrease the amount of time that you guys need to spend on this hiring process. Cool, Tom?
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so how did I come up with this theory? It was actually after I paid a lady called Maren Kate, who actually started a virtual assistant company based in the US called Virtual. They actually grew to over $1 million in sales each month. So I saw that she'd grown a virtual assistant business very effectively. So I paid her to look through the projections and plans for Virtual Valley. And what she said, or what she spotted when I took her through the recruitment process, was very interesting. It basically said that there was one small tweak, and that small tweak that needed to be made was taking what we currently had in step 5 and moving that forward up to step 2. And that step was the test task. And the reason she said that is because for the managing virtual assistant, or really for any virtual assistant, the most important competency or thing to look for is the attention to detail. I'll repeat that. Attention to detail is the most important characteristic to look for when you're hiring a managing or normal virtual assistant. And therefore, in order to avoid the commitment consistency bias. You need to screen for that competency as soon as possible. Because before we were leaving it to step 5 to screen for attention to detail, and the test task is the best exercise to enable you to screen for attention to detail. A test task is when you send a prospective virtual assistant a small task just to analyze how they would actually perform on the job. And so when we had the test task in number 5, that meant we were moving a virtual assistant through a process, and they could potentially have been a very bad virtual assistant to hire because we hadn't tested them for attention to detail yet. And when we tested them for attention to detail and they weren't good enough, we just look back at the process and be like, okay, we spent 4 hours recruiting this virtual assistant, let's just hire them anyway. That is called the commitment consistency bias, is doing one thing just because you'd already done it multiple times before. So you made this investment in the wrong virtual assistant, you tested them, they had a low attention to detail, but you hired them anyway. So what we actually did for Virtual Valley, and here's what I'm sharing with you right now, is that the test task has to come first, because you can immediately see whether this virtual assistant has the attention to detail that's so crucial to become an awesome managing virtual assistant. So with that in mind, let's jump forward into the 5-step recruitment process. Step 0, harvesting. As we know, Filipino virtual assistants are very heavily motivated by job security. And what we need to do is ensure that in the sort of piece of content that we push out into the world, we really highlight this. We highlight the fact that we can pass on, or we can provide the security that you really crave, and in response to that we'll get loyalty. But of course, before we sort of can go out with this job description, this is what we're talking here. So going back to that job description, is we have to change that, and we have to not call it a job description, we have to call this thing a job mission. And the difference between a job mission and a job description simply comes from this book, Start With Why. I'll summarize this book for you now. That is that effective people or organizations communicate by starting with why, and then moving on to the how, and then the what. So in your job mission, you need to start with the mission of your company and why you exist. Because when a prospective virtual assistant sees that your company has a mission and that they have a future, this enables them, or it sort of activates this requirement for security. That they see that this company is ambitious and it's going to be around for a long time, and that they can potentially provide you, the virtual assistant, with that security, which will mean that you, as the entrepreneur, will get the loyalty that will enable you to grow the business. So that is why I'm calling this a job mission. It means you start with why, you start with your company mission, and then you move forward with sort of how you do what you do, and then eventually what you do, and then eventually what you want your virtual assistant to do. So step 0, harvesting, starts with creating a job mission. Then of course you need to distribute that job mission, and I've laid down the channels that we used for Virtual Valley to distribute that job mission, all of them free of course, so that you can pay extra money on those freelancer marketplaces to get better applicants, but we never saw the need. So obviously distributing on company social media, email list. You can, of course, create paid accounts on online jobs, Easy Outsource and bestjobs.ph to post your job mission. You can obviously use the large freelancer marketplaces. You can use Craigslist. The most effective sort of harvesting technique that we've ever used is referrals from existing employees that are good, right? Your good virtual assistants or your good employees usually have friends that are also good. And then if you also have other people that are your friends over in the US or wherever you live in the world that hire good virtual assistants, then you can ask those friends for referrals as well. So that's step 1, that's harvesting. And when I say harvesting, it means harvesting all of the applications so that in step 1, the actual step 1 of the process, you can start screening. Now, before you start screening with applications, you have to understand exactly what you are screening for. So on the screen, you see all of the competencies, so the 14 competencies that we screen for with Virtual Valley. And you can see that at the end there we have attention to detail, which is the most important competency to screen for. And you'll notice that as we go through the 5-step recruitment process, you'll see that we are assessing specific competencies at each specific step in the process. And of course, we are moving through, and you can see here that screening, yes, we are looking at attention to detail, as we know, it's the most important part of the recruitment process. But we're also looking at experience, organization, and first impression, because we all believe, or that we believe these are also important in the process. So a couple of questions we'd ask about the application we receive is, how professional do they look? How professional is their cover photo? Do they have experience as a general or managing virtual assistant? Do they have any relevant qualifications? How well written is their application? So that is step one. We've harvested all of these applications, and then we can go and assess them very briefly, very fast, because remember, the commitment consistency bias, we do not want to be spending too much time before we have tested these people, these virtual assistants, for attention to detail, which comes here, the test task. If you remember Tom's law of hiring awesome virtual VAs, the more time invested in hiring a poor VA, the more likely you are to make a mishire, wasting hours of your time and hundreds of dollars. So this is why the test task appears so early in the process. So we go back to the competency list that you selected, and then you need to design a test task that is both representative of the work your potential VA will do, but also test strongly against these competencies. And I'm actually going to introduce sort of a bonus part of this webinar that I wasn't actually going to cover, the concept of a meta test. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I know we're pretty tight on time. A meta test is when you're testing someone but they don't know they're being tested. So an example, the meta test we used in our test for the Virtual Valley virtual assistants was that we'd ask a virtual assistant to do something, but then they would have to email the deliverable for that task to a specific email address with a specific subject line with a specific email body. So they've done what they think is the task, doing something, let's say, in a Google spreadsheet, but then they need to download that and send it specifically to this email address. They don't actually think they're being tested on that subject line and the email body, but they are. That's the attention to detail meta test that we're giving them that is almost impossible to fail. If you don't have the attention to detail, you don't know you're being tested, then you're not going to pass the test. We're not going to invest more time in you, and therefore you, the potential mishire, the VA that is the potential mishire, is not going to get hired, and you're not going to waste all your money and all your time. That image there shows the sort of virtual assistant recruitment tracker that I'd recommend everybody building. You can see the columns, they might be a bit small, but the columns from left to right show the different competencies that we're testing, and then the second column shows the questions that we use or the things that we're assessing specifically within that stage that we score for in those columns. So that's step two. And step two will immediately or should immediately eradicate those virtual assistants that don't have the most important competency, the attention to detail, from your recruitment process, so you can get on and only start investing your time in those qualified VAs. So we like to enforce that there are 2 video interviews in the process, and there are of course specific competencies that we are assessing here, and these questions here are the parts of the virtual assistant recruitment tracker here that assess specific competencies. So you can see, do they ask questions? Do they seem interested? That's testing inquisitiveness. And then, are they happy or smiling? That's testing likability. So each part of that process, or each part of this stage that we assess, we rank out of 10 and add into the tracker.
So guys, if you're watching, obviously that's why you're here. I would be taking screenshots of these. This is gold. How many of you guys have hired 83 virtual assistants? I'm sure probably not many of you, right? Learn from Tom's experience here. He's running out of time too, so he's trying to go quickly, all right? Take some screenshots.
Awesome. Okay, so that is the initial video interview, and there are specific differences between video interview 1 and video interview 2. We don't have time to go into more detail on that yet. But just to understand there are different things different competencies to assess in these different interviews. Because step 4 is what we call the competency video interview, and there are really 2 parts to this interview here. The first is a deep dive into previous employment, which is sort of suggested in what I believe to be the best book on recruitment of all time. You don't have to rush out and buy it because these are the 2 concepts I think are most important. First is diving deep into previous employment. So they basically say that the best indication as to whether someone would be good working for you is whether they have been good working for similar roles in the past. And you can understand that by asking specific questions. And then what I like to call the truth theorem, the threat of the reference check, is the second part of that book, which is very, very important.
So guys, pay attention here. Sorry for interrupting, Tom. Pay attention here because this is one of the biggest takeaways that I had from Tom. We have a pretty complex hiring process, and it's very similar to Tom's. The big thing, though, was number 2 here, right? The truth serum. This was huge for me, and I about wanted to bang my head against the wall when he told me that he was doing this and we weren't. So pay attention here real quick.
So I'm not going to jump into number 1 because it's pretty self-explanatory. There are specific questions to ask so you can understand about previous experience, but it's good to go through previous experience from the 5 years, from the past 5 years, each and every role, and ask them what people enjoyed and what people didn't enjoy from that role, and what their manager would think of them. However, you can then move on to the threat of the reference check, and here what you do after you've been through all of the relevant experience, you pick the piece of experience that is the most relevant to yours, and then you just ask these very 2 simple questions. The first question is, if we asked your boss in that relevant role about your strengths/weaknesses, what would he or she say? And then, regardless of whether the VA you have on the interview is an A or B or C player, there would be some explanation of what the boss would say, and that's fine. And you understand, you nod, and you smile. And then you come in with a second question. You say, okay, if we wanted to speak to that boss to check a couple of details, would you be happy to put us in touch? And the reaction you get then is incredibly accurate as to whether you have an A, B, or C VA right there. Because any B or C players that get this far in your process will almost immediately start making excuses about why they cannot connect you with their boss. So you can ask those questions and check what they've told you. However, the A players will immediately hand over, say, yeah, sure, here's the email address, contact them whenever you would like. I just want to go over this and sort of explain why I think this is so sort of groundbreaking, is because I don't want to say you've set someone up, but you've kind of enabled them to either be truthful about their experience or to exaggerate about their experience before you make it clear to them that you're going to be verifying this. And therefore, you are only going to allow the people through this process that have been truthful to you and also are effective, right? Because the people that are effective in their role will be truthful, and then you'll get the reference check. The people that are not effective in their role, it doesn't matter if they're truthful or not, because they would have been eradicated earlier in the process, in the test task. But if someone has been untruthful about their role and got to this stage in the process, it's here where you find that out, because they're immediately going to make excuses. So if there's one thing that you took away from this webinar, apart from the fact that you need to rise above the business, it is when you're interviewing, do the deep dive of previous employment and then use the threat of the reference check.
Absolute gold. Give me a 5 if that's a big aha moment for you and you're not doing that currently. This is brilliant, 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 brilliant stuff. Cool. Awesome, man.
Awesome. So again, recruitment tracker, chuck those the questions in for the interview and then be marking them out of 10. Of course, And then we move to step 5, which is actually the final step of the process. And it's actually a really simple part. So, I mean, what is the secret for a good reference check? The secret of a good reference check is simply to actually go and do the reference check. I think, I don't know the percentage. It'd be very hard to tell the percentage of people that don't check references, but those are the people that will make mishires and will waste loads of money and time, and ultimately their business will fail. So those reference checks you get from the truth serum question, you have to follow up with. And it can be a very, very sort of simple email that you send with just a few questions, just checking on what they have told you. So that is really the secret for the reference check, is just to actually go ahead and do it. And of course, check that data back into your recruitment tracker so you can get a quantitative, almost objective viewpoint of whether you should hire one VA over the other, because now you've been collecting that data for each stage of the recruitment process, and it will give you a nice little number at the end. So if we remember what I said to you about 45 minutes ago about I was to outline the step-by-step guide to hiring your first managing virtual assistant so that you wouldn't actually have to hire another one again because your awesome manager now is going to do that for you. Have I fulfilled my promise? Have I outlined that process that we used and given you a couple of awesome tips to ensure that your process is effective? Let's look at the chat. So yeah, if I have done that, please give me a 2. Please give me a 2 in the chat so I know that I've sort of lived up to that promise.
Cool. Lots and lots of 2s, guys. If you guys have enjoyed the last hour of awesome training with Tom and he's lived up to that promise again, just give him a 2 in the chat. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. That is really awesome to have your feedback. And there's a quick question from Oliver about receiving the Excel sheet. Yes, there is going to be an opportunity. I do have a lot of the sheet that we use in our process that we're going to talk about just in a second. Thank you so much. Look at all those 2s. Thank you, guys. Is there a replay, Joe? That's a question for you.
We'll have to see what the demand
Okay.
is for the replay.
Cool. Okay. So I think it's safe to say that I have managed to fulfill my promise. Thank you, guys. I really obviously respect the time. I think it's awesome that you've logged in and that you're interacting and engaging, and I'm glad that I was able to provide the value that you expected. Now, I think the stage that everybody's at on the call, there are really 3 options. Now that you sort of understand the content that I've just provided about the small business failure rates, and about that we need to start becoming entrepreneurs if we want to grow our businesses. And so those options are to do nothing and to continue struggling, thinking that you don't need a VA, thinking that I can handle everything on my own, or that I don't have enough stuff to do. And that's cool, but I believe that if you remain the technician and you don't like being the technician and you want to grow your business, then that is not going to work, and ultimately you would probably end up being one of those statistics. You can go it alone, and using the content that we shared today, you'd definitely be able to make an awesome start at hiring that managing virtual assistant. Though there would be a risk. There would be a risk that you would end up losing a lot of time, both recruiting, but also training and then working with a virtual assistant that doesn't end up to have that core competency of attention to detail. And therefore there'll be a significant time loss when you could be out either doing the things that you enjoy in life or also growing your business. And then, of course, there's also the financial loss, any finances that you expend upon for the recruitment process, but also more crucially on the salary of the virtual assistant. That's step 2, to go alone. Or there's step 3, is to follow a proven step-by-step blueprint for hiring, onboarding, managing, and actually scaling your virtual team. And really what option 3 enables you to do is to benefit from the 5 years of outsourcing that I've had, the 10,000 hours virtual staff that I've sort of invested in understanding how to outsource, hire, onboard, scale, and manage effectively, and also the tens of thousands of dollars that I've spent on virtual assistant salaries. So option 3 enables you to sort of tap into that experience so that and money and really do reap the benefits that the select people are gaining from working effectively with a virtual team. And so those are the reasons why I would like to introduce you to something called Virtual Assistant Mastery, a groundbreaking product called Virtual Assistant Mastery. And if it's okay with everyone on the call, I just want to give a very brief overview of the 6 core modules of Virtual Assistant Mastery and the 4 bonus modules of Virtual Assistant Mastery. So module number 1 is really an introduction to online business outsourcing and virtual assistants. So we're going to sort of dive a lot deeper into the market forces that allow us to build strong virtual teams. It goes pretty deep into the inner game of outsourcing, what I've learned from 5 years of building relationships with virtual assistants around the world, both in the corporate world, in the startup world, and with Virtual Valley. Why most entrepreneurs are not actually entrepreneurs, and really the best example I could find of building efficient business systems is, of course, McDonald's. They have an absolutely amazing story of how Ray Kroc was able to initially purchase what was quite an efficient business system from the McDonald's brothers originally, but then the real amazing part of his story is how he was able to take that system. So he was never working within that system. He was able to optimize that system and then lift and shift it around the world, and that's effectively what we want to do with your business. Quickly, as an aside, the advantage of doing that is if the business sort of operates completely without you, it's much more attractive to potential buyers. So I'm not sure if you're looking to sell your business, but if you were, by the way, that's how sort of anybody's ever got rich in my eyes from my research, is by selling a cash-producing asset. So if you are interested in that, in selling a cash-producing asset, it's very hard for you to sell that business if you're part of the business, and you have to be the entrepreneur above the system, and you can sell that business. The buyer is much more sort of attracted to buying a business system that you're not part of. So that's module 1. Module 2 is understanding exactly what to outsource. There's no point sort of hiring a virtual assistant, getting them to do that 2 hours of lead generation that gets the ROI on their salary, but they're not having anything else for them to do. So what you never let a new virtual assistant do in your business before you've done this yourself, how to train your VA. Oh yeah, this is when I spoke with many colleagues and friends about hiring VAs, people think that there's this sort of loss of time when they join, this expense that you have to pay while they're sort of learning and training. This is actually wrong. And you can get your VA started on day 1. There's the ROI generator. So we actually outlined part of that today, or we gave an overview of the ROI generator today. In module 2, we go sort of step by step into the lead generation task that I had my team doing when I was growing startup consulting, got that ROI. And if you're still sort of unsure on what task your virtual assistant can do, we're going to include 101 outsourceable tasks, so you never have an idle assistant. And in blue, so any blue bullets you see on these slides, these are templates, so actual templates that we've used that we're going to lift and shift and drop right into your business. That's going to save you literally probably hundreds to thousands of hours if you were to go and do this yourself with option 2. So the task delegator, you simply add in basic information into the spreadsheet, and it will give you an output as to what you should, or whether you should consider outsourcing that task or not. Once you understand what to outsource, then clearly you need to actually go ahead and find that awesome managing virtual assistant. So we're going to go much deeper into the 5-step recruitment process to hire those awesome 83 virtual assistants. We're going to go deeper into the truth serum question. So I'm going to actually sort of outline the variations of that question and give you the exact words that you need to say to automatically distinguish between the A and B VAs. The screening process at the start, before someone even gets to the test task, when you're screening applications, we need to understand how we can do that very effectively, because we know that the more time we spend recruiting an average VA or a B or C player, the more likely you are to make that mishire. and the reference checking template. So here's the email that I send when checking references, so you can literally copy and paste that, ping that email off to any references you receive, and get all the information you need to hire the perfect virtual assistant. Many more templates in Module 3 actually. So test task template, this is the test task. It includes those meta tests that I was talking about that we use when we're hiring virtual assistants for Virtual Valley. There is the recruitment tracker template, and it was Oliver who requested that on the chat. Yes, we are chucking in the recruitment tracker template, so the exact template with all the formulas that enable you to literally add in your competencies, and then you add in those numbers. So at the end, for every virtual assistant, for every tab in this tracker, a number is given to you, so you can objectively see who you should hire over someone else. It complete interview scripts for the first and second interview, so you literally have to get your VA onto Skype and then just go through those scripts and add your answers to those scripts. A template for writing your job mission. Remember, we're not writing a job description, we're writing a job mission where we have to lead with why we exist. So this is the job mission that we actually use, again, when hiring virtual assistants for Virtual Valley, that you can swipe and deploy. Module 4, so you've invested all of this time recruiting an awesome virtual assistant. If they join your business and you don't get those first couple of weeks right, it's kind of unlikely, unless you made an amazing hire, that you're going to get full productivity from them. So how do McDonald's sort of take on people from around the world, introduce them to these systems and make them profitable? So we're going to go through the McDonald's method and how you can sort of translate some of those tactics to virtual assistants. What to never say to your VA in their first 2 weeks of work, and trust me, I've messed up many times. The truth about virtual productivity, how to set your VA up for success, couple of templates, the job offer letter template. It's not mandatory, but it has a massive impact. So once you've given the job offer to a virtual assistant and they've accepted, you send them this awesome document that really starts the relationship off really, really effectively, that they feel like they're working for a proper company, they feel like part of the team, as opposed to just some freelancer working through Upwork that isn't part of your organization. There's the new joiner process template. So possibly the most important process within your business, I believe, is the new joiner process to get your virtual assistant up and running as soon as possible. That's module number 4. Once you have your virtual assistant onboarded, then you need to be working productively. So how you develop your VA manager from the management level into a leader, the right and wrong way to give bonuses, understand the culture of the Filipino virtual assistant, and we actually get my virtual assistant manager, Vandro, from Virtual Valley onto a call to sort of go through culture and go through how you can work, how you can effectively manage your VA manager. Then, very, very important, something called the 13-month rule, which I don't have time to go into more detail here, but if you ignore this, your team could potentially all leave at the end of the year. An exhaustive list of all Filipino bank holidays, know when your team can and shouldn't be working. And then what I believe, what I have found to be very important to bookend the start and finish of the shift of your virtual assistant is the opening and closing shift procedures that we use at the moment. So these are the things that your virtual assistant has to do when they start and finish their shift. And finally, you've got your virtual assistant, like you've understood what to outsource. They're working productively. Now you actually need to start scaling. And this is when you sort of educate your virtual assistant manager on that process. So when I brought on Xander for Virtual Valley, and he was working effectively, I sort of trained him to be a leader, and we were able to scale Virtual Valley effectively because I was off doing my growth content marketing stuff that I love, and he was there scaling the empire without the requirement for my time. So in Module 6, we go into how you know when it's time to expand your team, how to create the magnetic in-person team spirit, how and why to set up communication procedures, the most important virtual working tools that you cannot live without if you want to build an efficient team, that is, how to train your VA manager for recruitment excellence, to maintain, if not improve, the quality of the virtual assistants within your organization. And of course, we have a template here. It's very, very important, I believe, for everybody, onshore and offshore, to understand where they sit within your organization and who they report to. So we're going to share the organizational chart that we use. And now, so those 6 modules make up the core of Virtual Assistant Mastery. So with just those 6 modules, you are going to be able to scale an awesome virtual assistant team. There are 3 videos per module, and we go deep into that process. So literally, after you've consumed that information, you will not have to learn anything else about scaling a virtual assistant team again. But because we wanted to make Virtual Assistant Mastery extra special and almost irresistible, we chucked in these extra bonuses. So bonus 1 is really quite self-indulgent for myself, I guess, where I'm going to explain to you how I am productive. So as I've been working and growing Virtual Valley, this double-sided marketplace, I've also been running the e-commerce store that we saw that I went onto Dragon's Den with. I've also been doing TEDx talks. I also have a couple of other projects that I'm working on. I run that event, the marketing event in London. So how have I been able to run these 4 online businesses, travel the world, and maintain a thriving social life? That is what we're going to go into in Module 1. So we're going to go through a day in the life, and then we're going to also cover 5 simple productivity rules that my virtual team live by, meaning that I spend literally 10 minutes per day reviewing progress within specific businesses with my VA manager and dealing with issues. So that is bonus module number 1. Bonus module 2, now there are a lot of templates involved in managing and scaling and starting a virtual team. And so bonus 2 is literally the vault of all of these templates I've used during my time hiring, managing, and working with virtual assistants. So it's imperative to have an effective weekly team meeting. It's imperative to have a vision for your business and to have that documented so everybody in your team knows where the business is going and how far along the road you've come. Having a contract, now this is massive, and I think the percentage of people that work with virtual staff that actually have a contract is dismal. So if you have an efficient contract that gives you control, it makes the virtual assistant more secure and therefore more loyal, as we've learned about the Filipino virtual assistant mindset. And it just sort of enables you to deal with any issues effectively because you have this clear agreement at the start. An employee satisfaction survey. So to be able to scale an awesome virtual team, you need everybody within your team to be satisfied. And so what we have here is a survey that you can send around weekly or monthly to sort of gauge the satisfaction of your team, to understand whether there are things that you should be doing to improve this so you can continually grow, so you can continue to grow the business. Bonus number 3, this is a very interesting bonus, I think. So once you have been through all 6 modules of Virtual Assistant Mastery and sort of proven to us that you've been through the content and you understand that you're ready to embark upon this journey of scaling the virtual team, we're actually going to get you on a Skype call with my virtual assistant manager so you can check your processes and systems before you jump in. And the reason why this is with Xandro and not myself is because Xandro, once I created this recruitment process and handed it over to Xandro, he is the one who's been managing this, right? So he is probably, if not, he's probably as good as me at hiring virtual assistants, if not better, because he's done it more. So that's why I want to get you on with Xandro, so he can go through your processes, check over your job post, and potentially would even be able to recommend some virtual assistants for you from his network. As we know that when we went back to harvesting applications, we know that good virtual assistants hang around with good virtual assistants. And I wouldn't have worked with Xandro, I wouldn't have employed him as my manager for Virtual Valley if I didn't know he was good. So he may be able to recommend some virtual assistants straight to you so that there can be some applications you can pass through your process. Then the final bonus is actually fast action, and we can only give this to the first 10 people that enroll, that invest in Virtual Assistant Mastery, and this module is called VA Process Precision. And so the core focus of bonus module 7 is to understand the importance of repeatable, documented processes within your business. So you're going to learn how to build the ultimate working procedure, which will basically mean that you don't have to train anybody ever again. understand how to track and store all of your working procedures to enable streamlined processes. And of course, we have the templates for you here. So a template for a working procedure, and I don't really have time to go into this, but a working procedure is basically a documentation of things that happen within your business so that you retain all the knowledge within your business and you tune the minds of your virtual assistants to continually improve these processes. So we give you the template for the working procedures that we create. We're also going to give you the actual working procedures that I use to scale Virtual Valley. So how we drove massive traffic from Twitter, how we manage customer support, how we built links, how we got podcast interviews, how we commented on blogs. Also how we produced a podcast for very little investment that got to #1 in New and Noteworthy. And then obviously a tracker for your working procedures so you can understand exactly which processes you have when they were last updated, and so you can keep everything under control. So that is bonus module 7, but remember, only for the first 10 people that invest in virtual assistant mastery. So you're probably thinking right now, what is the investment for virtual assistant mastery? And the pricing that we've adopted here is such that the investment you need to make is less than 50% of the amount you would waste just in the first month of hiring the wrong virtual assistant. And as you can see in the 6 core modules and the 4 bonus modules, you are going to have the information so that it will be very, very hard for you to hire a wrong virtual assistant. And therefore, yes, you can take option number 2 and go it alone, but it seems like it would be very likely, or that it is likely, based on other people's experience in the chat, that you would not get the right virtual assistant first. And therefore, you can just take 50% of that money that you would potentially use, invest it in the program that's going to make it very hard for you not to make that mishire. And then you are going to be working with an awesome virtual assistant manager that's going to enable you to become the entrepreneur that you are truly supposed to be. So the investment is $299. If you go to virtualassistantmastery.com/go, you can make that investment, and remember that only the first 10 people that do make the investment are going to get bonus module number 7, VA process precision.
So real quick, guys, real quick, how many of you guys thought it was going to cost a whole lot more than $299? Give me a 9 in the chat. How many of you guys thought it was going to cost a whole lot more than $299? Give me a 9 in the chat. Yeah, right? All right, so guys, please, real quick, I want to make a couple things very, very clear. This course pricing is stupid. Understand that this pricing will not last. Okay, there's a reason that this year, I think we've done 2 affiliate promotions this year since January. Okay, and this is the second one. Right? This is the second one. Why? Because we are invested in giving you guys only what you need. What you guys need and what's not going to get you distracted and not just another shiny object. You guys know as well as I do, most of you guys, you need this, right? Let's see, James says, I was thinking $9.99. Okay, guys, again, this course pricing is stupid. This is basically all of Tom's knowledge broken down into a course with all of their templates and procedures and everything for you guys. Okay, plus all the fast action bonuses. And I was talking with Tom about a week ago when we decided that we were actually going to do this for you guys, and we got the date set. And Tom agreed to do something cool for you guys. I had to pull his leg a little bit. But here's the thing. Tom and his team are really, really good at building out procedures, right? Operating procedures for different tasks. That's how he's able to give you guys these templates, right? They have a lot of them in their business. They've gotten really good at them. So I talked to Tom about, hey, man, would it be okay, or would you guys be willing to if I send you guys a training, would you be willing to make a working procedure for that training so that we can give it to everybody that enrolls in Virtual Assistant Mastery? Do you guys think that that would be valuable? If we take the digital triggers training and Tom and his team would make a working procedure for those systems, that would be cool, right? So that you guys could hand those directly to your VAs to onboard them and train them on how to use everything. If that would be cool, give me an 8 in the chat. That would be like some crazy good shit, right? Okay, cool. So guys, I think that this is probably my most ridiculous bonus package ever. But we're going to do something really cool together with Tom. Okay, because Tom's made that possible, his team is going to be taking our training and assisting us in creating these procedures for you based upon our training so that you guys can give them to your team. So there is all of these systems and processes, by the way, guys, are all designed to turn your VA into that money generating asset, right? Again, one of the things that I want to make sure that you guys leave with is when somebody comes on, you need to get them into a money-generating activity right away. Okay? And that's where most people fail, is that their onboarding and training is crazy long and they're not getting them into a revenue-generating activity fast enough. They don't make money for them fast enough. Okay? So I've come up with and assembled and got this ready for Tom, my favorite prospecting methods. Okay, and I'm going to be sending this over to Tom for his team to completely map out and create the working procedures for you guys. Okay, so that you guys can give this to your team. Okay, I'm also going to give them our execution maps. Okay, and I'm going to teach them our process, or give them our process and let them make it better like they do on our local business theme and building out a new site with the local business theme from scratch. Okay, so all of those things, basically there's going to be, let's count here, there's the execution maps and the local business theme. So there's 6, 7, 8, there's 8 additional procedures that we're going to give you guys, all designed to turn your VA into a money generating asset for you guys. Again, guys, this is truly insane. Like, frankly, the pricing of Virtual Assistant Mastery by itself at $299 is stupid, right? Like we talked about. And this bonus alone, these 8 procedures, are worth a whole lot more money than $299 as well. All right, so make sure that you guys get in there.
So just to clarify what you're saying, Joe, if you're going to take the procedures that the people are already running, they're going to be packaged up and documented so that when anybody does hire the awesome virtual assistant, it's just going to be lift and shift. Here is what you need to do. So there's 0 time invested on training / onboarding.
Yes, sir. That is it.
That's groundbreaking.
That's going to be some really good stuff for sure. So is that cool, guys? Give me a 7 if that's awesome. If you guys are in, let's see. I'm in it. I'm in. Thank you so much. This is a great concept. Awesome. I'm in. Good stuff. Cool. Fantastic, guys.
Awesome. Okay, and final point on pricing. I think I probably lost 10 times that amount on mishiring or ineffective management in my time with the virtual assistant. So the way I see it is that I'm passing on that saving that you guys may miss out on with this product. So that's the final point on pricing. Now let's move forward. Now there's a few questions I want to quickly run through so that if anybody is unsure, they may get answered here. If not, chuck any questions into the chat and I will jump on them. So my business is not making enough money to hire a VA yet. What should I do? We've been through this. So we know that if we can get our virtual assistant up and running with the ROI generator, that's going to bring in the ROI for all of their time with 2 hours a day. The rest of that time is just bonuses. They're going to be freeing up all of your time to then go and invest in your business to grow it, or either in other tasks or other things in your life to improve your quality of life. So that there really is no excuse anymore by saying that you don't have enough money, because hiring the VA is actually going to make you more money. Can I work with a VA if my business is X. So if that X is any business that has virtual or online knowledge work, so when I say knowledge work, I mean anything really done on a computer, yes, you can. So of course, SEO agencies are ideal for hiring virtual managers or hiring virtual assistants. Any online business, any startup, any company that has virtual knowledge work, yes, you can work with a VA. I've had a bad experience with a VA before. Why would this be different? I would wager, or I would bet that you had a bad experience because you made the mishire because you did not test for that important competency, attention to detail, early on enough in the process. So you got to the end, if you even noticed that they didn't have the attention to detail at all, you notice at the end of the process where you're already biased to hiring them anyway. So what we're doing here is we're getting rid of all of those bad VAs in step 2, the test task, so that only those with attention to detail get through to the later stages. I like being a technician. Why do I need a VA? Now, this is actually a great question, because if you like being a technician and you don't want to grow your business, that is cool. Like, I don't think you'd be on this cool, but that is absolutely fine. So you potentially don't actually need a VA, but if there are parts of being the technician that you either don't enjoy or other people are better at, and therefore your business would add more value to other people if you got someone in to do them, then maybe you should find the VA to do that for you. If everybody buys this course, won't that mean that there's more competition for the best VAs? That's also a very good question. And I went to Davao City, which is the second city in the Philippines, second largest city in the Philippines, in April of this year. There are 5 million people. And from my experience in the VA community over there, there's almost I wouldn't say exodus, but there's a migration of VAs from the corporate office world in the Philippines to online work, primarily driven by the extensive commuting times with the traffic-heavy, traffic-laden cities in the Philippines. So basically what I'm saying is that no, this would happen because there are less people hiring VAs than there are VAs becoming available, like awesome VAs becoming available due to the increasing quality of life it gives virtual assistants. Do you have any specific VAs that you can refer? As we mentioned with Virtual Valley, I now sit above that system. I don't interact within the system only when I need to or when I want to. The person that potentially would have VAs to refer is Xandro. That's why we threw in bonus number 3, so you can get a checkup on your processes before you hire, and if he sees a fit within people in his network and your job description and your job mission, he would potentially refer yes. How long until I can expect my VA to be fully productive? If you follow Virtual Assistant Mastery effectively and you get your hands on the bonuses that Joe and his team and us are producing, your VA could potentially be fully productive in their first shift. That's all for that question. What if I buy the course and can't find an awesome VA? That is also a very, very good question, and we're going to be jumping on to a groundbreaking guarantee after the FAQs. I don't have time to hire a VA. What should I do? Really, the only reason that you should hire a VA, or if you don't have time to hire a VA, that basically means that you really should be hiring a VA. If you don't have time to rise above your system and time to be creative and to grow your business, then that is when you definitely do actually need a VA. So I think actually, before we jump on the slide, let me take some questions from the chat. Okay, awesome. Okay, so we see people that bought and cannot wait to get started. People shouting out for you, Jay. You seem very popular here, of course. Here we go. Do we have a question here?
Man, we just got lots and lots of great feedback. Love it. This is one of the greatest concepts ever. You know, I'm in. Was I, one of the first 10 I bought. Can't wait to get started. So lots and lots of just good feedback. I haven't seen any real questions, so to speak, so far.
Oh, that's fine. If anybody does have a question, drop it into the chat now. I'm sure I can address it before we finish the webinar. But thank you for this awesome feedback. How do I know if it's over in the top 10? Joe will be in touch.
I'm letting everybody know in the chat as well.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, well let's move on. So, Yeah, what this really comes down to is, do you believe that you can become the entrepreneur? And if yes, and I believe everyone on this call does believe, because they are trying to, or we are all trying to grow our businesses, we're trying to help more people, then if that is true, then you really have to understand if you're going to try and take the small online business failure rate seriously, because we know that 90% of us will fail if we don't truly become the entrepreneur, rise above the system, and enable it to grow, because it never will if you remain working in the system. And this is why I'm so passionate about working with virtual assistants, especially in the Philippines, is that they just enable you to become the entrepreneur that everybody wants to be, everyone pretends to be when they're actually not. And that's ultimately why I built Virtual Valley and why I built Virtual Assistant Mastery. So it comes back to Albert Einstein again, and basically, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again with expecting different results. So if the people on the chat that have said, I've hired a VA before, but they're rubbish, or I've hired a VA before and it didn't work, you really have to understand that if you go back and try and do the same thing without knowledge or learnings from someone that's been doing this for years, has lost lots of money and time, then you'll get the same results. But if you can make the investment, therefore, and then gain that knowledge, you're going to be doing different things, and then you can expect different results. Now, as I mentioned before, we have what I believe to be one of the most groundbreaking guarantees I've ever seen, and that is what I'm calling the 60-day less work, more money guarantee. Well, what does this mean? It basically means that even if the 20% reduction in the amount of hours you're investing, and at the same time, a 20% growth in revenue, so that's less work and more money guarantee. In 60 days, after hiring your first VA using Virtual Assistant Mastery, I'm going to jump on a 30-minute Skype call with you. Bearing in mind my hourly consulting rate is $250 per hour minimum to go through your processes. And so to answer the question that we had earlier is, what would happen if I don't find a VA? I'm going to help you find a VA on that 30-minute Skype call. And if you're still not happy, we'll give you an immediate, no questions asked, 200% refund. You can even keep all of the templates that we provided. So to reiterate this, if you don't work less, so see a 20% reduction in hours and get more money, 20% growth in revenue in 60 days after purchasing, after hiring your first VA using Virtual Assistant Mastery, we're chatting on Skype. I'm going through your processes. I'm going to show you what you need to do to find that awesome Virtual Assistant manager. And if you're not happy, that's absolutely fine. We will process a 200% refund.
Guys, that's some good stuff, right? 200%, and Tom's going to do everything possible to help you. You're not going to get that anywhere else. You're not going to get all of Tom's training anywhere else, right? This price is certainly not going to last. And guys, this bonus package is probably, realistically, my most ridiculous bonus package ever.
That is outrageous. I'm not sure how many hours it's going to take us to document all of your processes, but it's going to be long, and they're going to be extremely valuable. It's literally going to be like, almost like by recruiting an employee that's already perfectly trained for your business, right?
Yep, exactly. Let's see. Somebody says, do you reference the hiring source in the course? Yes, guys, this is literally everything from A to Z. This is everything that you need. A to Z, from hiring to onboarding and managing. This is going to be your Bible. Each and every one of you guys know, to get to that entrepreneur stage and to stop working in the business and start working on the business, right? This is what you guys need to do. Okay. And that's why I brought Tom on, because I think that there's nobody else to better teach you guys than Tom.
Okay. Does this course suggest using VA agencies in the Philippines or finding individuals who are not part of a larger company? Very good question. So I've had experience working with VAs that are part of larger companies. I do not see that the amount of value that larger companies add is worth the amount you'd have to pay. So from my experience, if working with an agency where your virtual assistant works from their office, they get basic HR services from that company, they would charge double the salary. Yes, those are valuable services, but for me, and from my experience and all of my friends that run successful online businesses, is that the amount of value they provide is not worth doubling the salary. And therefore, you can actually go away and find somebody who is perfect for your role, because when you don't restrict yourself to agencies, you can find you have a much wider resource pool. And then and if you manage them correctly, if you onboard them, if you train them, and if you turn them into a leader, they're actually going to be more effective than sort of being stifled within their organization. So to answer your question shortly, the answer is no. But if you are going to say no and not use agencies, you have to do all the other stuff right. And of course, that's covered in Virtual Assistant Mastery. Yeah. Any more questions?
I have the same point of view. I've used recruiting services before. I've used outsourcing companies that, they take your task and, have somebody in their team do it, or they connect you with a full-time person. And frankly, I've tried it quite a few times and it's never worked for me. Hence, guys, why Tom's process and our process looks so freaking similar.
One more question here. Will VAs in the Philippines work US hours? Yes, of course. So as part of the agreement and contract that you make, you will explain the working hours that you require your VA to work. My virtual assistant manager, Sandra, works from 9 to 6 UK hours, so that is significantly later. And I have had virtual assistants, I know virtual assistants with Virtual Valley work US hours, and I've had virtual assistants working with me working US hours. So the answer to that question is yes.
Yeah, for sure.
What should we expect to spend a month on VA? So as I mentioned in the slide above, for your virtual assistant manager, university educated full-time, you're looking at around between 500 and 700 USD per month, based on quality, right? So you can find people for more than that, and you can probably find people for less than that. But I wouldn't recommend, unless you require specific skills for your manager, I wouldn't recommend paying more than 700 full-time per month. And so I'm not actually going to release Zandra's pay, but Zandra's pay is within those boundaries. But of course, if you have a VA who's not necessarily managing and he's just doing basic admin, lead gen, or research, then that can drop down to $3 per hour as opposed to $3.75, which equals $600 per hour. If they're working full-time, which is 160 hours per month. So to summarize, between $3 and $4 per hour. How much should we pay per hour? Okay, I'll answer the next question. Yes, so I've never paid less than $3. I've probably never paid more than $6, but that was for a specialist WordPress VA. So for your VA manager, I would pay between $3.5 and $4.5 per hour based on experience.
Real quick, if you guys would, in the chat box, would you guys share your biggest takeaway that you guys had on today's webinar? And if you enjoyed today, would you guys do me a favor and just thank Tom for spending, the last hour and 50 minutes with all of us? I want to give him some big props in the chat. We got a good crew here, Tom. They're all thanking you, man. They love the truth serum.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for the feedback.
All right, guys. We appreciate each and every one of your time. I'm seeing a lot of requests for the replay, so we will be getting that out. I'm not sure exactly when it'll be out, but we will put that out. Just know, guys, that the first 10 fast action bonuses obviously will be gone by the time the replay gets out. Tom, any last thoughts before we jump?
No, I just want to say I really enjoyed that session, and I think that if people understand if people want to become an entrepreneur, and I think today, if you just sort of focus on that concept of becoming the entrepreneur, and then if you want to use VAs to do that, I think it's going to have a massive impact on your business. So, and I want to thank you, Joe, as well, for having me on, because I've really enjoyed today, and I think we've helped a lot of people.
Yes, brother, for sure. I know lots of people have had a ton of aha moments, and I was just sitting here reading them in the chat. Lots of awesome comments talking about people's biggest takeaways. And I know that this is just the start, guys. We really were only going to be here for an hour, right? We're already at 2 hours. There's a lot more that we can share with you, and I want to end with kind of one thing. A lot of courses are very, very large, and they take a long time to go through, right? I'm sure that you guys have been through courses like that. Tom, talk about kind of the length of the course and how long you think it's going to take them to get from I just bought to I went through everything. What's the course length?
Yeah, so in terms of consuming content, it's going to be between 2 to 3 hours if you just sat down at your laptop going through everything. Of course, we have a lot of the templates like literally there for you to lift and shift. So to go from zero to being in a place where you're ready to start harvesting applications, it's not going to be longer than 4 to 5 to 6 hours, depending on how prepared you want to be. That's including the session with Xandro. And that's having literally everything set up and ready to get your first VA manager on board. So in less than a day.
Yep. I was definitely very impressed with the training, and that's why I brought it up. I think Tom did a really good job of making short and concise videos for each module that are really to the point. I know I'm sure you guys are like me, and you don't like to spend 12 hours going through a course when somebody could have condensed it and probably done it in 3 or 4. And just know, guys, that's what you guys are getting inside of Virtual Assistant Mastery. You guys can literally take a day or take an afternoon over the weekend and start implementing and get through the whole thing from A to Z in a couple of hours. So awesome, guys. Thanks so much, Tom, man. Really, really appreciate you. Everybody have an awesome, awesome week, and we will talk soon. See you guys.
Cheers.